Hello YouTube, and about a year ago I did a buying guide for the PlayStation Vita of some of the best games I felt like you could buy under $100 for the system, and I had about 8 games for that. And I've decided that since I am now starting to get more and more into Super Nintendo collection, a better way to help others get into it would be by giving a buying guide of, in my opinion, some of the best Super Nintendo games you can get for under $15. And I know what some of you may be thinking, the SNES is going up in price, everything Super Nintendo is just skyrocketing, so how could I make a list of just games under $15 that are good? Well, I have 10, technically speaking 11 games here to share with you guys, all under $15, all are really good and all are a ton of fun. So check out this list. Let's start it. First game up, Tetris Attack. My copy is beaten to crap, as you guys can probably tell, but this game is a ton of fun. The soundtrack is incredible to it, and another big thing that I love is that it uses a bunch of Mario characters, which is really kind of weird in a puzzle game, but it's just really charming too. Might be a little weird. Really fun game. I put this game at $10, so that's $10 used of 100, so we have 90 left, and this is already a game you can sink a bunch of hours into because it's a puzzle game. Also, soundtrack on that game, incredible. Going to be using some of the music in this video because it's that good. In fact, I've used it in a couple videos. The next game is a game that goes by the name of Hyperzone, and this was made by HAL Entertainment, or HAL Laboratories. And basically enough, it's a game where it's kind of like a shoot 'em up. It's an on-rail shooter for the Super Nintendo, which is a little crazy. It uses a Super FX chip really well. It's really colorful, it's really bright, it's really fun. And the best thing about this game, it is incredibly cheap. This is a $5 game. Like, I priced this at $5. It is that cheap. Really fun game. Definitely recommended. That puts us at $15 right there. The next game might surprise a couple of people, but it's Ken Griffey's Major League Baseball. Now, to be fair, I'm kind of just lumping in a sports arcade style game into this slot. I chose Ken Griffey's Major League Baseball, but you could also go with something like NHL 94 or NBA Jam. And I put this at $7 just because NBA Jam and NHL 94 can go for about $7 as well, and this goes for about $7. So this is a $7 game, but it is a ton of fun. You could play through the season mode of this, and that can easily take like 3 months to do because seasons are incredibly long in this game. It's also probably my favorite baseball game. Granted, I haven't played too many baseball games, but man, this is a lot of fun. Highly recommended it. The next game is actually, technically speaking, 2 games, because when I was making this list, I couldn't decide which one to put on here, and they're both kind of weird titles, so I figured they would be interchangeable because their prices are arguably about the same. And it's Tin Star or Pacman 2, The New Adventures. And these are both really interesting games for the Super Nintendo because they're kind of like point-and-click adventures. Now, Tin Star is a game that uses a Super Scope, so you could argue and say it's a light gun game, but if it's a light gun game, it's not like any other light gun game you ever play. And this is compatible with a SNES mouse, so I would say this is closer to a point-and-click game. And Pacman 2, The New Adventures, is pretty much like a point-and-click game you would game on the PC you would play back in the 90s, where you just go through colorful worlds and solve puzzles and things like that. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty challenging if you don't know what you're doing the first time. And the best part of both of these games is they're both only $5, which is why I couldn't decide which one to put on the list. So I'm going to say either pick up Tin Star or Pacman 2, whichever one tickles your fancy, whatever that saying is. Whichever one you would think you would prefer. I personally would go with Tin Star just because I like the setting and everything more. but both are really fun games. The next game I put at $15 isn't technically speaking a game. It's a Super Game Boy. And what can I say about the Super Game Boy besides it lets you play Game Boy games on your Super Nintendo? And that's awesome. If I have to explain that, then I mean, you know, the Game Boy has such an incredible library, and the games are so cheap on Game Boy that you might as well pick one of these up. Games also look really good. Played through a Super Game Boy thanks to the borders and everything. Yeah, I definitely recommend trying to pick one of these up for $15. It can be a little tricky, but it can be done. Trust me, I paid $10 for this. These are super common. So the next game is a arcade style beat 'em up, and it's called Batman Returns. Some people might be saying, why not Final Fight? Final Fight, in my opinion, hasn't aged that well. Controversial opinion, I don't like that game that much. It's not that fun, it's not multiplayer. This is really fun. This is Konami in their prime, in my opinion, and this is only a $15 game. So if you're keeping the totals up at home, that puts us at about $60. I think it's 60. So the next game is one that some people might be saying, well, why this? It's Super Star Wars. And Super Star Wars is a game that's really cheap, even though it's really good. This game is a ton of fun. Is it hard? Yeah, it's pretty dang hard, but thankfully enough, there's an easy mode. And I don't know, like, I was able to beat this game on, like, my second playthrough, or my second try, or whatever, after I game overed. I don't know, I started from the beginning. But yeah, I was able to beat this whole game, so it can't be that hard on, like, if you're playing it on the easiest setting. I don't know, maybe I'm just really good at this game. I'm probably not though, I'm actually probably pretty terrible at it, but it's a ton of fun. It's a $10 game, really easy to pick up and play. And if you're looking for something that's kind of like Contra 3, the Alien Wars, but now nowhere near as expensive as this game, this game will definitely scratch that itch. Ton of fun run and gun shooter. The next game is actually a genre that I'm not a big fan of, but I know a lot of people would really like it. It's F-Zero. Yes, F-Zero is only a $10 game on Super Nintendo, and yes, I recommend it. Even though I'm not a big fan of it, it's, you know, it's F-Zero. It's one of the most iconic games on the Super Nintendo, and it has one of the best soundtracks on the thing too. Let's see, yeah, a ton of fun, even though I'm not a big fan of it. I can't not recommend F-Zero at $10. The next game is a shoot 'em up that's on very few people's radars, even though it should be, in my opinion, because this is a top tier shoot 'em up on the Super Nintendo, and it's Super R-Type. I don't like vertical shooters, that's the ones that go like this way. I don't like vertical shooters, but I love this game. It's a ton of fun. It's challenging enough, even on the easy difficulty, it's still pretty challenging. And then on the harder difficulties, this game's flippin' brutal, but it's challenging enough, it's a ton of fun, and the soundtrack is really good. Again, I've been saying that a lot, but a lot of these games just have really awesome soundtracks. I really recommend Super R-Type, and this game is only priced at $10. You can probably even find it cheaper. In the last game, I wanted to recommend a platformer, but I didn't want to recommend something that is a little bit common, or that most people who play SNES games look for in a platformer. A lot of people would probably say Block, but the game that I'm recommending is Super Widget. And if you don't know what Super Widget is, go look up a video. This is one of the weirdest games ever. So you play as this purple guy, and his name is Widget, and he's like an environmentalist or something weird like that. Wow, an environmentalist is weird. But yeah, he's an environmentalist purple guy, and he transforms into like weird animals and robots, which is like kind of cool if you ask me. The graphics in this game are really nice, really cartoony style. Kind of reminds me of Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, which is not a bad thing because that's a top 10 Super Nintendo game. And the controls are a little bit finicky in this, but they're really, once you get used to them, they really fit the game. I love Super Widget. I absolutely adore this game. It's got a ton of personality and a ton of charm. And best of all, this is only a $15 game. This is a game that like no one talks about on Super Nintendo, and is still like a hidden gem. You know, like something no one talks about or knows about. But I definitely recommend it. It's a ton of fun. Great game, published by Atlas, so you know, has the pedigree. But yeah, so those are the Super Nintendo games I would recommend for if you're on a budget and you're just starting your SNES collection. Those are 10 or 11 games if you decide to pick up both Pacman and Tin Star. Those are 10 or 11 games that are just awesome games, really fun stuff. Highly recommend all of them. But you know what else I'd recommend is subscribing to my channel, which is down below, liking this video, and commenting. Have a wonderful day, YouTube, and peace!